I've seen teachers cut their students slack one day and try to break hard on them the next, and it's just not going to work. You have to be the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Okay? There's no ands, if, buts about that, because if you're not consistent, you're going to lose your credibility fast. Welcome to the Teacher RockStar podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to providing valuable insights, practical tips, and proven strategies to ensure that new teachers are successful in the classroom. Before we dive in, let me ask you a question. Have you ever found yourself standing in front of your classroom, battling distractions, and wondering how in the world am I going to regain control? If so, you're in the right place. Classroom disruptions can derail even the best, well-laid lesson plans. But with the right strategies, they are completely manageable. With 20 years of classroom experience, I've seen quite a bit, from pencil fights to impromptu dance-offs, and I'm here to share what works. I'm your host, Steve Hiles, retired educator, published author, and teacher coach. I'm thrilled to have you here today as we dive into a topic that every teacher faces at some point in their career. It's classroom disruptions, and we've all been there, standing in front of the room wondering what in the world is going on. How did we go from multiplication to full-on chaos? Well, fear not, because today I'm sharing with you 5 practical tips to not have all this chaos in your classroom, and to keep your classroom running smoothly. So we're going to start with number 1, which is a biggie here, and that's set clear expectations from day one. Imagine this. You walk into a restaurant and no one tells you if it's self-serve, or if you have to wait to be seated. Chaos, right? Well, it's the same thing with your students. If they don't know what the expectations are in your classroom, well, evidently you're going to have chaos. So students need to know what exactly is expected from them. Spell it out, model it, practice it, whether it's how to ask a question, how to enter the classroom, how to exit the classroom, how to line up for recess or lunch, whatever the case may be. My mantra has always been explain the procedure in detail, model it and rehearse it over and over and over again till it's like clockwork. All right. So when you do that, what's going to result is there's going to be less room for misunderstandings, which oftentimes leads to disruptions. Number 2, create engaging lessons. Let me ask you this. How often do you start scrolling through your phone during a boring professional development meeting? Has that ever happened to you? Well, students are no different. Believe me, if they're bored, they're going to find other ways to entertain themselves, and I promise you, it won't be reading silently in their textbook. That's for sure. Use interactive activities, like include lots of movement in your lessons or music. Get them up moving around, interactive types of things. For example, when students are engaged, I think it goes without saying, disruptions you'll find is going to be decreased greatly, because if they're too busy involved, in the learning, well, then obviously that's going to be less time to, get into disrupting your class. Are you a teacher who finds yourself drowning in the challenges of classroom management? Do student behaviors leave you feeling overwhelmed and drained at the end of each day? Picture this, a classroom where your students are not just present, but fully engaged, focused, and eager to learn. Say goodbye to classroom management stress and hello to success. The Teacher RockStar Academy course is meticulously designed to equip you with the tools and strategies needed to skyrocket your effectiveness as a teacher. Curious to know if the Teacher RockStar Academy course is the missing piece in your teaching journey? If you're ready to reclaim control of your classroom and witness the incredible impact on your students, then use the link in the podcast description to learn more about this program. Moving on to number 3, build strong relationships. And I'll tell you what, this is by far probably one of the most foundational things that you could do in your room. You know, obviously when students know that or feel, sense that they can trust you and believe in you, that you have their back, okay, they're going to go the extra mile for you. They're going to want to learn from you, okay? If they like you, then 99.9% of the time, okay, they're going to perform for you, okay? So, you know, some of the things that you can do, I mean, there are many, but just some of the things I can think about right now would be to greet them at the door, give them that positive affirmation, okay? Ask them about their weekend. You know, hey, even compliment them on a new haircut. Believe me, those little small things that you do are going to pay off in big, big dividends. I used to have a student spotlight board in my room where I would actually post up achievements of students and their interests. And it's amazing how much more cooperative students are when they know that they've been seen, valued, and heard. Very, very important thing here. Next up, number 4, develop consistent routines. Predictability is your best friend in the classroom. Establish routines for everything, from morning meetings to packing up at the end of the day and everything in between. Okay? When students know what's coming next, they're going to be less likely to derail the flow. And here's a pro tip. Teach these routines explicitly at the start of the year and revisit them after long breaks. And what I used to do always, once my students return from the winter holiday season and after spring break, or whenever I had an influx of new students come into the room, I'd always revisit these procedures again by explaining them explicitly in detail, okay? Model them, okay, and rehearse them over and over and over again till it's like clockwork. Okay, now let's see. Finally, number 5, address disruptions quickly and fairly. Ignoring a problem is not going to make it go away. Just ask my overgrown lawn. Nip disruptions in the bud before they escalate. Use a calm but firm tone, okay? And focus on the behavior, not the student. That's the big thing here. For example, instead of saying, you're always causing problems, try reframing it like this. It's time to follow our rule about raising hands. And remember, consistency is the key. I've seen teachers, they cut their students slack one day and try to break hard on them the next, and that's not going to work. You have to be the same today, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, okay? There's no ands, if, buts about that, because if you're not consistent, you're going to lose your credibility fast. Now, let's put all this into perspective. Preventing disruptions isn't all about being a drill sergeant. I don't believe you need to scream, yell, rat, and rave at your students to get them to do things. As a matter of fact, it would embarrass me every time I heard a teacher down the hall screaming, okay, to try to get things done. You talk about it just erodes your authority as a classroom leader. So we don't want to do that, okay? As I said earlier, use a calm, firm tone so that the child knows that you mean business. It's as simple as that. Think of yourself as a conductor of an orchestra, and each student is an instrument. And your job is to guide them to play beautiful harmony, all right? Sure, there's going to be some squeaky violins, okay, and an offbeat drum now and then, but with patience and practice, you'll create a symphony of learning. And think how powerful that's going to be when you do that. And hey, let's not give yourself grace. I mean, we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. No teacher is perfect. Okay, there's going to be days with this, despite your best efforts, chaos is going to ensue. Maybe it's a full moon, or maybe little Johnny just needed an extra nap. Okay, whatever the case, use these moments as learning opportunities. Reflect on what worked, what didn't work, and what tweak you could put into place to offset that. All right, so one of the most rewarding things about teaching is seeing the growth, not only in your students, but yourself as well. All right, over time, you'll develop your own rhythm and strategies that work best for you and your unique style and classroom. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. There's a whole community of educators out there who have been in your shoes and are rooting for you to be successful, okay? So, my friend, let's do a quick recap. Okay? You need to set clear expectations from the get-go. Create engaging lessons. Get them up moving around. Incorporate movement, music, okay? Hands-on activities. Build strong relationships, which is foundational. It's not an added thing on your plate to do. It's what you have to do, okay? Establish consistent routines and address disruptions properly. Now, these 5 steps that I just shared with you to prevent classroom disruptions, they'll help you not only prevent classroom disruptions, but also make your teaching more enjoyable and fulfilling. All right, now with that said, my friend, we have come to the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Steve Hiles, and we will see you same time, same place next week. And remember, my friend, you got this.
You've been listening to the Teacher RockStar podcast with your host, Steve Hiles. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast as much as we have. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our ever-growing community of Teacher RockStars. Until then, thanks for listening.